Welcome to the Sharpe Show. So happy to have you with me this evening, right at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Look at me on time, rare, but does happen once in a while. I wasn't sure. I don't have that many guests on the show. Usually it's just me here yapping about something I'm pissed off about. That's the norm. And then you guys yell back at me and we have a fun show. A nice community works back and forth. But more than once, people told me, you should have this guy, Larken Rose, on. And I was like, Larken Rose, I want to have him on? I don't know if I want to. But okay, why don't I give this guy a shot? Why don't I check it out? So I've decided, yes, we're going to have Larken Rose on, who has a big following, which I'm very happy that he does. And I'm happy he decided to come on. I'm very happy that he is. He's kind of, how would I explain him? He's definitely an author and an activist. That's true. So yes, he also does a lot of content, writes for movies, political commentator, but I'm going to bring him on as he is a hopeful anarchist who thinks most people are stupid. That's a good way of doing it. How are you, sir? Happy to have you here.
I'm doing good, and I'm happy to be here.
There we go. So I immediately started with some blood sport. You think people are stupid. I'm teasing, but you have said things like that in the past. If this is true, okay, no, go ahead. Respond to what I just said. Sorry.
Well, just to clarify, I think a lot of people never question what they were taught. A lot of people never get to anything close to a philosophical thought because they live within their little box, and that kind of counts as stupid in a lot of ways.
But if everyone's that way, but if people are that way, right? If most people, and I agree with you, I think you're right. Most people don't walk down the road that maybe they should, right? Meaning, what really is true, what is right, what matters, all those things. Most people just kind of let their life be run by inertia. That's what my day job is. I've done a lot of training and coaching with executives and such. And one of the things I bring up often is what you don't want to do is simply let your life be run by inertia, right? One of the most common things people have is when I say, why are you doing this job? They'll say things like, well, they were hiring. The exact worst reason to get a job. I mean, it might have been a good job for you, but that was the worst reason, right? You should have looked for a job you wanted, or some kind of label you care about, that kind of thing. But if most people are that way, doesn't that make them normal and not stupid?
Are normal and stupid mutually exclusive?
Well, one would assume, right?
Well, not so sure about that. It is normal to go with the crowd. And I know a bunch of pro-freedom people of various stripes think that means we're doomed. I actually just did a video about this, and it doesn't at all, because the crowd goes where little vocal minorities make it go. And I use the example of slavery, that pretty much everyone in the Western world, if you say, hey, do you think slavery is a great thing? They all say, no, it's horribly evil. Well, if you asked all those same unthinking sort of herd mentality people that a couple hundred years ago, at least a lot of the white ones would go, oh, well, it's legal and stuff. They didn't philosophically figure anything out.
Right.
They got dragged there by better people who think more than them, and that's going to happen again.
But how we got rid of it in the long run, I think. I mean, even though we did use violence, right? The Brits didn't use violence, so it wasn't required to use violence. Some cultures used violence to get rid of slavery. Some cultures didn't. Some cultures used their system. Some didn't. But many of them, they didn't go all out. In other words, Lincoln didn't say, hey, we should make black people equal to white people. He didn't say that. He just said, we probably shouldn't own them. I mean, they're not equal to us or anything like that. I'm not going, let's like get ahead of ourselves here. That's kind of how he was. He was like, but should we own them? It's probably not a good idea. So in one case, you have a system working, right? If you say theoretically, like the British system, getting rid of this bad thing, not via war. But then you have another one in ours that used war. But the way he got people to do it was by not going all in, by not being radical, so radical that saying black people are equal, just we shouldn't enslave them. Am I wrong on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say Lincoln had absolutely nothing to do with the end of slavery. First of all, the Emancipation Proclamation, it's something that King George did too. It was a tactical maneuver of saying those slaves in those other places we don't like, currently controlled by people we don't control, I declare you free. In the North, you're not free. Screw you if you're still up here.
Right.
The thing that broke slavery in England, and the violence is optional. It can be done passively, it can be done violently. What is not optional is disobedience. And a
Okay.
lot of juries in the US wouldn't convict people under the fugitive slave laws and were disobeying and breaking the law. How dare they? To the point that bogus immoral laws became unenforceable. Now along comes Lincoln and then pretends to be the emancipator, even though he was just viciously racist, and openly said he didn't care if he could preserve the Union, as in authoritarian control, without freeing a single slave, he would have done so. He said that publicly.
But do you think he really meant that? And what I mean by that is, do you think as a politician, he kind of said what he thought he needed to say because he believed, and I don't know this, I'm asking your opinion, that he just said, hey, I can't say the thing that I honestly believe because then I can't get what I want. And I want an outcome that will be this. And for me to get that outcome, I have to bend the truth, lie, obfuscate. I have to do this to get the outcome that I want. And I believe that if I do these bad things, I can still get a good outcome. Therefore, these bad things aren't that bad. I mean, I think lots of people do that, don't they?
Yeah, lots of politicians do that in all directions.
Sure.
With every single audience they talk to. They'll say different things to different audiences, like day to day, to get what they want. Right. Lincoln was absolutely a tyrant in every single way. He didn't care about the First Amendment. He didn't care about the Second. He didn't care about the Fourth or Fifth or Sixth or Ninth or 10th. He was absolutely a violent tyrant, but he had such good PR that most Americans still revere him as if he was a crusader for freedom. He literally arrested people for having newspapers critical of his regime. Like that's not a freedom crusader.
But I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like you're just saying. I feel like you're just going, well, let's beat up on Lincoln. But that wasn't really what I was talking about. I was talking about the idea of could he have done that? In other words, even though most people who are evil, or let me change this. Most people who do evil things. How about that? This way, no one gets mad at me whether I'm saying someone's evil or not. Most people who do evil things, they justify their deeds, right? They think they're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. Most of the people who were doing horrible things throughout history would say, no. Larken, you're wrong. He cared about the greater good. See, you're just short-sighted. It was the greater good. Isn't it possible that Lincoln thought it was the greater good?
Yeah, and he could have been another Pol Pot who said everything I did for my country after committing mass murder against a bunch of people who committed the sin of like thinking and reading and stuff. Whatever went on in his demented head to decide whether he was a good guy doing good things, he used a tool that is inherently immoral, which is government authority. And every single person who ever tries to use government authority to do anything is acting against humanity and freedom. Might as well dive right to the heart of that.
That's a very bold, broad statement. Okay. But okay, so then so I guess if I hear what you're saying, and you tell me if I'm off on this, you're saying that any government force is by default evil.
Well, if it requires government authority, like a guy with a badge can use force in a situation where it's justified, like stopping somebody from stealing somebody's purse or something.
Okay.
But his badge had nothing to do with the morality of that. And politician scribbles, laws had nothing to do with the morality of that. The only thing political authority is ever needed for is to give permission for thugs of the state to do things that everybody would recognize as evil if anybody else did them. Because that's the only reason you ever need special authority, is because everybody would go, well, that's bad if you do that. Oh, no, we have a politician scribble that says we're allowed to do this. So every time anything is done by way of political authority, it's literally just trying to legitimize immoral violence.
So then, but what about the argument that says, no. See, Larken, here's where you're wrong, right? You're wrong because we voted for it. And therefore, since we voted for it, it's not violence because we voted for it. I know that sounds silly, but you and I both know people say this all the time, right? We voted for it. So you know what? This is a democracy. We voted for it. and therefore it is not violence.
Yeah, and democracy is, we might as well dive right into this too. Democracy is the best trick that tyrants ever came up with to get their victims to imagine legitimacy to immoral violence. No,
You
a
actually did a
majority
movie on this,
voting.
didn't you?
What was that?
You did a movie on this.
I did indeed. I wrote it. It's called Joe's Plantation.
Yes. But
And
don't we then fall back to the idea? I don't know if it's true, but I think if I remember right, was it Churchill who's attributed to democracy is the worst form of government except everything else has been tried? I think that was a Churchill. Yeah.
Which is a clever and completely backwards statement. If you look at democratically elected constitutional republics specifically, they have been the most murderous regimes in the history of the world. The People's Republic of China, democratically elected constitutional republic. Yes, they had a constitution. Yes, they let people vote. They even had a Bill of Rights that didn't do any good. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, same thing. North Korea has a constitution and a Bill of Rights.
Nazi Germany was a democracy, so was Imperial Japan. I'm with you.
And so the idea that, well, if we can vote, that means they sort of represent us, and that means we're consenting to it. That is the lie that makes it so tyrants can get away with way worse stuff than if someone just came along and said, oh, I'm king because I pulled a sword out of a rock or something, because people will go, yeah, we're not sure we buy that. Okay, well, then me and my brother are going to let you decide which one of us are going to stomp on you and enslave you and rob you constantly. That sort of means you chose it and you consented. That means we're representing you when we rob you blind and dominate you and beat you up for not obeying us. That is the insanity of democracy. And it's literally worse than dictatorships, because most people can look at a dictatorship and just go, well, that guy just says he gets to rule by brute force. That's not okay. But
you just said, hold on, make sure we got it. You just said a democracy is worse than dictatorship.
Absolutely. Because in a dictatorship, most of the people can recognize the evil. In a democracy, most of the people can't, as demonstrated by everybody who keeps voting for authoritarian violence and warmongering and socialism and all manner of authoritarian.
But then doesn't a democracy then, though, right, give you the opportunity to make a change, to shift that system, to shift incentives so that things can be better, where a dictatorship doesn't? And my example that I would try to give was things like changing laws, allowing women to vote, things of that sort, right? Something that maybe a dictator might say women cannot vote, period, because I'm a male king. I've decided that's wrong. Where if you have a democracy, couldn't you then make things better? Changing the age of voting from 21 to 18 or up to 25 or whatever the case may be, versus dictatorship where you can't do that.
No.
Okay.
In a practical level, you can't make any significant difference at all. To change the voting level, okay, we changed the voting level. Compared to when we were the subjects of a monarch under King George, we are way less free in every single way, as you well know. Under a system where people vote and they get mad at each other and scream at each other, they vote imagining they have some influence. The only thing they're doing is saying, we concede to the idea that this ruling class has the right to take our money and boss us around. We're just going to beg to the masters to please boss us around a little bit more gently or something. And on a practical level, it doesn't work, as demonstrated by the past couple of 100 years of growing authoritarian control. And on a moral foundation, just philosophically, it's insane. Because it's literally human beings saying, I want to decide which one of these people has the moral right to violently control me and steal my money, or which one of these political parties or a whole system or whatever.
But if you look at anthropologists will tell you this. They will say that once a human population gets past a certain number, if I remember right, I think it's 250. I forgot what the number is, but there's a number. For the sake of argument, I'm going to say 250. Someone in the comments can correct me if it's a different number, but whatever that number is, once you get past 250, then naturally human beings become more authoritarian. It's what we do. If we don't break up into smaller groups then we by default become more authoritarian. It's what we do as humans. That's across time, that's across culture, that's across everything. We just do that. If that is true, assuming they're correct, and we are going to become authoritarian, wouldn't it be better if we had some choice? Isn't this, if assuming Churchill was the one who said it, isn't this the best one of the worst or the least bad?
Nope.
So it's still is better if
we on a daily basis, we in the US have way less freedom than most people did in Nazi Germany at the worst times. Now, obviously, the ones being rounded up, yeah, they had it lots worse than any of us did. Yes. But as far as tentacles of the government, no, it is democratically elected monstrosities that control and monitor everything. And of course, technology has a big part to play in that. When we get to a certain number of people, we don't have to get authoritarian.
Okay.
We do have to get organized and cooperate. And I'm not at all against that. A lot of people assume that like anarchy means every man for himself. No, why would anybody want that? But there are a zillion ways to voluntarily organize and have hierarchies. Like someone can go work for a business and this guy can say, okay, I own this business. You can work for me and do what I tell you to and I pay you. You're allowed to leave and I'm allowed to fire you. Like I can't conscript you to work for me. So it's a voluntary arrangement. But if you want to get a paycheck from me, here's the job you have to do. Here's the rules you have to live by. And the other person can say, okay, well, I don't want that. Or I do want that, or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, any number of people is going to require a whole lot of cooperation and organization. And by the way, the vast majority of that is already not authoritarian. Like when we go to a supermarket, that is insanely organized, and it's so well organized and cooperative that almost nobody, in fact, nobody knows how all of it is done. It's like, well, this guy did the bid for the oranges from somewhere down in Florida. Like, does he know how the trucks keep them cool long enough so they don't all? No, he doesn't need to.
Right.
But nobody's forced to, like the truck driver isn't forced, the customer isn't forced, CEO, management, guys, no, none of them are forced.
But if you ask the average American that question right there, if you said, hey, how does this get done? The average American would probably say, well, it's because we have good government regulations. They would say that. Yeah. And I would argue they believe that. You and I both know they're wrong, but I think they believe that. And because they believe that, here is my biggest concern. The things you're saying, I understand what you're saying. The vast majority of Americans would just go, this guy's fucking crazy. This guy's nuts, right? That's not how this works. Without government, we'd all be dead in the streets. And they honestly believe that.
Yeah.
They're not being a jerk to you. They honestly believe that without government, we would all be dead in the streets. It would literally be Mad Max shooting people with machine guns, trying to get gas in the streets. They believe that to be true. So how do we get a better world moving towards what you want with our current system, to where our system says the vast majority of Americans are like, this guy Larken's nuts. What we need is just, one more election with my guy winning. Right? If we just get one more election with my guy winning, or gal, right? In theory, either one, but almost always guy. Anyway, and with my gal or my guy or my gal winning, then we can put this Larken guy to bed, right? Because then we'll show him how we've made the utopia I've been complaining about for years. This will now pop up and Larken can go shut up.
Because that's worked so well for the last 200 years. This is exactly why I rarely approach it from the practical and prediction side of things, because people can imagine whatever they want. Be Mad Max and maybe killing and eating each other in the streets. Just like the people in the Soviet Union, if they're used to getting their bread by standing in line for hours and waiting for a moldy piece of bread, if somebody says maybe there shouldn't be a ruling class here, a lot of them are going to think, well, then there won't be any bread at all. Now, we in the U.S. know that, no, there will be bread, even if government doesn't control it, especially if government doesn't control it. But people can imagine whatever they want and predict whatever they want. Here's my usual approach. Absolutely everybody who advocates government of any kind, any size, any flavor at all is betraying their own conscience and their own moral code. There are zero morally consistent statists, including libertarians. Not one. and I can prove it. And that's usually how my approach goes, to demonstrate that to vote, you have to betray things you know, not my conscience, because why would you care about that? You have to betray things that you morally know are wrong. You have to advocate things you know are wrong, but it usually takes a couple steps for people to start to see that. But shall I demonstrate that?
Well, go, please, go demonstrate, go. Yes.
Do you want to be the guinea pig for this?
Go ahead. Happy to be.
Can you name some law, I'm sure you can, that you think is bogus and people don't actually have a moral obligation to obey?
Sure. I'll say one. Any drug law that is about possession. So a possession drug law. I've used this. It was a guy, just a quick story. There's a guy who was from Greece who was sitting with me chatting. And he said, I don't understand why are you against drug laws? I don't understand that. And I said, okay, see this, we're in a city. So it's a building right next to us. I say, see this guy in the building? Yeah. If that guy right now was smoking weed, if he was smoking weed right now, do you think it's morally, not legally, morally okay for me to kick the door in, grab that from him, throw him on the ground, and put him in a cage? Do you think it's morally for me to do so? He said, no, that'd be crazy. I said, why should cops do it? And he was like, I said, that's why I'm against drug possession laws. Now, if you rob someone to get your drug, the action of robbing is good. But the law against robbing is a good law, right? Because you're violating someone's rights. So my argument to you would be, my answer to you would be, yes, possession drug laws.
Perfect example. And you gave half of my argument for me, which is Andy. Okay. Is there ever a time that you think you're morally obligated to obey a law that you think is wrong? Now, I'm not asking whether it's a good idea because they'll kick down your door and drive a tank into your living room. Are you ever morally obligated to ignore your own conscience in favor of obeying a law from government that you think is wrong?
Yes. And that would be assuming that it's how you look at family and community. That's where the line would be drawn, right? If you believe and feel your community matters, would you do something that might harm your community to assist your family, or harm your family to assist your community? In that specific line, I could see there being a problem, a moral issue.
Well, again, you're the subject of the question. So what might be a scenario where you think the good thing for you to do is ignore your own conscience?
Okay, on a personal note, never. But I'm just being realistically, right? There are people who would say, no, here's the example. My daughter murders my neighbor, right? I could see someone saying murder is wrong. The community matters. I should turn my daughter in. I'm not turning my daughter in. I don't give a shit. I'm not, right? No matter what, I'm not. But I could see someone doing that. That would be my only place where I could see a gray area, is that your conscience might say, it's my daughter, I love her, I don't want to give her up. But the community in this case, or the world you might believe, is a mix. So I could see that being that's the only way I could see a gray area in someone's mind.
And that's still you sort of balancing your own values and deciding when to do this instead of that.
Yep.
Let's say there's something in fact, no need for a hypothetical. Can you name something you do want government to do using tax dollars? Most people, this is really easy for. I know it's going to be.
Okay, here's what I'll say. With the current way we are in America now, court system. I think we could do it better privately, but America's nowhere near that. So assuming that we exist in today's environment, court system for people who have disputes between each other.
Okay. Now, suppose that for whatever reason, I don't want to fund the government version of court systems.
Yep.
Whether I think they're corrupt or I just can't afford it, whatever it is.
Yep.
What do you think should be done to me for not paying taxes that fund that?
Are we talking? Okay, this is a weird one, because if we're talking my perfect world, well, then none of this, obviously. But in today's world, with the way it is now, yeah, I have to somehow punish you. I do. Otherwise, we can't have a court system. And if I want that court system, if I do, and if I want fairness, this goes to my earlier point. What do I care about my community or not? Does my community say we have to have a court system? And my community does say that, right? So my community does say I have to have a court system to make disputes between you and I. Otherwise, you just get more guns than me and you're right. Or I have more thugs than you and I'm right. And now I have street justice. So with today's world, yes, you have to be punished somehow so that I can have my court system.
Okay. Have to be punished somehow isn't very specific. What exactly, if it were up to you, not, well, government's probably going to do something to you. Like we're both well aware of nasty things government. What would you have government do to me if I don't fund the court system you want?
God, I don't know. That's a tough one. I've never thought of that. It's tough. It's tough for me to answer. I don't know.
Would you feel justified doing anything yourself if there wasn't government involved? You thought people ought to chip in for this, like
if I believed in it. Look, I was a Marine for 7 years. If I believed in it, if I was like, yes, Larken has got to be part of this court system. If I believe, of course I would. I would be happy to enforce the law myself. Of course, if I believed in the law, of course I would. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. Right?
You would. And you'd also be a hypocrite if you did.
No. If I believe this is the thing, if I believe that we need to have it, if I believe that, right? If I believe we need to have a court system and Larken's part of my community, so he's got two choices. He can be banished from my community. That's option one.
Oh, okay.
Which would be force because you're leaving because you won't pay for my court system that I believe we need, right? So you need to leave my community. You got to go. And if you won't leave, yeah, I would not have a problem physically being part of thugs who come into your house and throw you out. Now, would I want to give you some kind of reparations for losing your home? I would. That would be fair. I'd want to give you something for losing your home, but I would throw you out of my community. Of course I would. That is what I would want to do if you wouldn't pay the tax for my court system that I believe in. I don't know why I do, but for whatever, in the sake of our argument, I believe in this court system. So I would say you have to pay. If you don't pay, you got to go. If you don't go, yes, I would be happy. I'm older, so I'm probably like one of the sergeants. I'm probably not going to be throwing you out. I'm probably telling my youngsters to go get you. I'm probably giving the orders, right?
Okay. Now imagine a Democrat who thinks that in our community, we need to take care of the poor and we need taxes for that. And if Larry doesn't want to pay for that, we're perfectly justified kicking him out of his house or demanding money for him or evicting him from the community.
If they actually were to say that, I would respect them more. If they were actually to say that and actually want to do it, I'd respect them more. I would.
Yeah, because they're never that honest. But the question
they're never that honest. Yes. They're never. I'd respect them more if they would actually say no. And if AOC, who's my congressperson, would say, look, I'm leading the people into your room. I've got the shield and I'm busting in your front door. I'd respect her more. I would.
But incidentally, I do respect you more for admitting you would initiate violence against me. It's still immoral, but I respect you for
I'm telling you
that. But the question with them, if they're that honest, which they hardly ever are, why is that not okay for them to force you to fund something that they decide is necessary, but it is okay for you to force me to fund something that you think is necessary?
Are we talking in a theoretical world or a real world?
Yeah, this is your ideal government.
Oh, okay. In my ideal government, everyone would live in voluntary communities, and we'd have a rule as to who's going to pay what for the court system. We'd have some form of court system, whatever that is. And if you don't pay for that court system, you have to leave the community.
Okay.
That's my world, right? If I could have it. We all agree that this is how we're going to do this. And my world's the Amish. My world's the Amish, right?
We don't all agree. By definition of the example, we don't all agree. I didn't agree. I'm over here living in my house and I say, I don't want your court system. I don't trust it. I think it's corrupt or whatever.
Yep. You got to pack your shit, brother. Sorry.
Okay.
That's how that works. You got to pack your shit. Yeah. That's how that works. You got to pack your shit. You got to find another place that's going to be like you. And that's it. And we're good. You got to pack your shit. That's it.
Okay. And if a Democrat says that to you, get out of the country unless you're going to fund our welfare state. are they justified in doing it?
Of course not, but they do it.
What do you mean, of course not? You just did the exact same thing they did to me.
Yes. However, the goal would be you would move into the community understanding the rules that we made.
Well, what if I'm just in a cabin somewhere? Like, I'm not in your community. I didn't agree to it.
Then I don't care. Then you're not. Then you are not under my rules. Good luck, man.
Okay, fine, good.
Yeah.
That works then.
Yeah.
If I went into some community agreeing ahead of time, I'll abide by these, and then I disobey the rules. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's true of any. That's like walking into a business. Hi, I want to work here, but I'm not actually going to do any work. You can't fire me. Yeah, if I went into an agreement and broke the agreement, that's fine.
Agreed.
But
so
that isn't.
I don't know why we went down this road. This is a weird road to go down.
Well, I know that's the thing is almost nobody goes down this road because almost everybody skips over the description of the actual force because they think that violence is okay if it's legalized first.
No, I think violence is acceptable when you are violating people's rights, which is why I talked about the court system.
Yeah.
You would only use a court system as a way of a dispute that you took someone's property or rights or liberty, and now there has to be some restoration for that thing you've done. Someone has to decide what that restoration is. Someone has to, right? Whether that's a judge we agree upon or a jury that we agree upon or whatever, someone has to. And if you're in the community and we've made these rules and you decide, I don't like these rules because I don't want to be punished, you're going to get some violence, my friend. That's how that's going to work. And if I believe in that, yes, if assuming I believe in that, yes, I don't have a problem giving the orders. I'm older. I'm probably not coming to your house, but I will give the orders and be responsible for the young men who do come in your house. Yes.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, everything you're describing, you would still feel justified in doing it without politician scribbles and laws and governmental authority.
Of course. Just I would want, yes.
Okay.
I would, yes. Yep.
So it's actually not even the thing I was talking about. Is there any time, so let me phrase it this way. Is there any time that you would ask government to do anything you don't have the right to do yourself?
No, never would. Of course not.
Okay. Do you think governments ever have the right to do anything that you don't personally?
No, but let me give a caveat. I would give government the same caveat I'd give anybody else, which is, let's say, for example, I am walking in the middle of the street and a car is getting ready to hit me. And you didn't ask my permission. You ran out, grabbed me, and threw me out of the way. Now, you did assault me. You did. You assaulted me. That was an assault. And I could say, why'd you assault me? Oh, my God. Right? I could do that. But that would be a shitty thing to do. So the only time that I could see government doing something like that would be if the people honestly believed that they were actually trying to do things right or whatever the case may be, and they'd have to be open to being investigated by non-government to see if it was actually real. That might be the only, and I'm stretching on purpose. I'm trying to give you something, Larken. I'm trying to give you something.
So it sounds like you're still the only time. Yeah, you're still trying to apply the same standard to government and anybody. Like, it's just a basic moral standard that, if somebody pushes me out in front of a bus without asking me first, physically, technically speaking, that's assault. Whether he has a badge or not is kind of irrelevant.
True.
Do you think legislation alters morality and gives anybody the right to do something that normal people don't have the right to do?
Sadly, not in my view, but in the view of the vast majority of Americans, yes.
Oh, I know they do. That's why I'm asking you. They absolutely do.
I walk down this road, right? You and I talking about this is wonderful, but I'll give you an example that I use often. Second Amendment, right? When I talk about the Second Amendment in cities, I never bring up the Second Amendment. I don't bring it up. Why? Because in most urban areas, they think the Second Amendment's stupid, makes no sense, has no value, irrelevant. People in North Country, New York, Western New York, get mad at me all the time. Larry, you got to tell them about the Constitution. I'm like, they don't give a shit. It doesn't land. They don't care. If they had a choice, they would erase the Second Amendment tomorrow if they could. They don't care. So what I do is I say gun control is racist. Why? Because the cities go, racist? Wait a minute. No. You can't call me that. That's the worst insult in the world. You can't call me that. So then they listen. So I use the words that get them to hear my argument. So I feel like you and I are having a conversation. This is like me talking to a guy upstate New York about the Second Amendment. It's nice, we're agreeing, but we're not changing any minds. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, and the thing is, going through this process is obviously very different with people who are Republican or Democrat or whatever else, because most of them advocate like a gigantic laundry list of things they want government to do and think government has the right to do that normal people don't, including taxing the hell out of their neighbors.
Absolutely. Yes.
And controlling what their neighbors can do. The problem is that even the tiny little minarchist version of government, there's only two options. It either has rights that you don't, or it's not government. And the idea that it has rights you don't is insane, and the root of about 99% of the evil that happens in the world, which is done by way of the notion that governments have rights that we don't. But the moment you say, well, it just represents us and can only do what we can do, it doesn't have authority anymore, which, by the way, it doesn't.
Well, there's two pieces to that. Number one is there's a whole lot of people who do think they have authority to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot who would go, no, I should be able to kick down that door and take that weed out of your mouth and put you in a cage. There's tens of millions of Americans who think, yeah, that's completely fine. In fact, why aren't we doing that right now? Like, they would totally think that's okay. So that's piece number one. Piece number two is, don't we have to, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was in intelligence for a short period of time. And when I was in intelligence, they talked to us about things like interrogation, stuff like that kind of stuff. And that story I tell often, which I never forgot. It was a story about an Army officer who was captured during the Korean War. He was interviewed several years later, probably in the 70s or 80s, he was interviewed then. And he was talking about how this Chinese interrogator came in and was talking to him how awesome communism is, right? And he basically laughed at this guy. This officer was a typical West Pointer, East Coast, right? And he tells the Chinese interrogator, he's like, look, when this war's over, I'm heading home to my beautiful house with my beautiful wife and all my money, and you're never going to convince me that communism is good. It's never going to happen. And the Chinese guy says, oh, yeah, I know that. He goes, I only have to do one thing. I have to convince you that your way isn't perfect. And after that, you'll leave Korea. That was the goal. The goal was just to crack the facade of perfection. That's all it was. Don't we have to, when we're talking to people, just crack the facade of perfection?
No. Okay. And here's why.
Please keep going. Yeah.
Because the vast majority of people can complain till they're blue in the face about nasty things the government's doing. Yep. They'll complain about different ones, like Democrats will complain about this and Republicans will complain about that. And all of them advocate the authoritarian domination of mankind. They just don't like how it's being done. Okay. So almost everybody can recognize the nasty symptoms of statism, including political libertarians. Nobody who votes recognizes the actual problem because they don't notice that while they're complaining about the symptoms, they are advocating the problem. And the problem isn't actually the people over there called government. The problem is all the other people imagining those people to have the right to rule, imagining that law is anything other than made up bullcrap from politicians, imagining that political authority and elections and constitutions bestow upon anybody special rights. As long as people believe that, we will have injustice and atrocities all over the place.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is, all right, say I want that to happen as soon as possible. I want people to recognize that government's garbage ASAP, as soon as I possibly can. Don't I have to get people to hear me? Don't I have to change their minds? And isn't most change either one of two ways? One, a significant emotional event, like I get arrested and go to jail, right? Like something like that. Or my son is killed in a war, right? Some emotional event, number one. Or number two, isn't it kind of like slow, tipping point off the edge? Mm-hmm. Isn't that how most change is?
Yeah. In
So
fact, I would
since
say,
I don't want to start putting people in jail and I don't want to have their kids die in war, shouldn't I be doing the slow off the edge?
no, because there's only one choice that matters. Either you are the property of government and obligated to obey, or you're not. The slow progress is people getting to the point to realize those are the only two choices. You're a slave if you believe government authority is real. You're free if you don't. It's binary.
So, but then does my action matter? In other words, let's say I believe exactly what you believe. Say you and I are totally simpatico, but I decide I'm going to pay my taxes because I don't want to go to jail. So I pay my taxes, even though I believe everything you're saying. But I am literally by paying my taxes, I am supporting the system. I am supporting this. So is it my actions or my thoughts or both?
The thoughts matter way more, because I mean that the same could be true of the mafia. It's like, well, I live in a city and the mafia controls it, and I like my kneecaps, so I pay them I don't have any moral obligation, but I pay them their protection racket fees so they don't break my legs. When enough people recognize we don't have the moral obligation to go along with it, it collapses. And sometimes that'll be like a nasty rebellion type thing. The better way is when enough people figure it out and just say, if we literally all just ignored the IRS, there would be no fight. There would be no revolution. There's 300 million of us. There's 100,000 idiot paper pushers. A couple thousand of them are armed. If any of them are dumb enough to come after us, well, that'll be a really short battle. The thing that's in the way of that is not the IRS. It is not government authority. It is the belief in the minds of the victims that they're obligated to go along with that crap. That is the belief.
But it isn't just obligation. Let me touch the tax piece, right? They've done this a bazillion times. They do polls on this all the time. The vast majority of Americans honestly believe that the price for freedom is taxation. They honestly believe they're not paying taxes. The vast majority of Americans are not paying taxes because they're afraid of consequences. Some are, but again, poll after poll after poll shows the vast majority of Americans are paying taxes because I should. It's the right thing. I'm paying my fair share, right? Why are you so selfish, Larken, for not wanting to pay your taxes, right? That's what they believe.
You're making my point for me. They have been trained to believe they are morally obligated to obey whatever crap comes out of DC in the name of law and regulation and taxation and all that crap.
I didn't say moral. No, I didn't say moral. I said they think to get what they want. This is just transactional.
You said should. Should is a moral judgment.
Then I'll go back and I'll say most of them believe the only way to get a good civilization is to pay taxes. They believe that. They don't believe they should. They believe they must because I want it. I want a safe, great world, and there's no other way except through taxation. Now, why do I say that? Hold on, let me say why I say that.
Sure.
Because people don't change because things are bad. That's not a thing. People stay in bad. So it's like a thing called learned helplessness. They stay bad. They change when things are really bad and they see hope. Those two things must connect, right? Things are really shitty and Larken has a plan, right? Those two things have to go together. It can't be Larken's just mad at me. That's not going to work, right? I'm just going to stay in my world and say he's crazy. That's what I'm going to do. But if he's got a plan, okay, I might follow this guy. He's got a plan. Now, for someone to hear my plan and to believe that Larry Sharpe's got a plan so they can make the change, don't I have to kind of play the game so they can hear the plan?
No, because what playing the game does is it starts by telling them, I accept that the ruling class has the right to rule us. Now, let me tell you why the ruling class doesn't have the right to rule us. Why would I vote for somebody to be my master if my goal is to tell people they don't have the right to rule you, whether they get elected or not, whatever constitution, whatever scribbles they do not have any legitimate authority over you. Why would I play the game that all it does is reinforce the notion that these stupid rituals give them authority over us?
Because I have to get a hold of them. Because
Yeah,
I have to have them hear me. And
they
because
don't.
because they believe what you just said, they do believe that. They believe that this is authority. They believe that this is the only way. So when I step into that role, they then hear me, right? And I say that because when I have run for office, I've had many people go, Larry, I never thought that taxation is theft. I've never thought of that. I know, now you do. I've never thought that this idea of we fight them over here, so we won't fight them over here, over there, or whatever, is bullshit. I didn't know that until I talked to you. And they talk to me not because I'm super good looking. I mean, I'm clearly super good looking, but that isn't the reason why they talk to me. They talk to me because I was in a role that they saw as authoritative. Am I? Did I do the wrong thing?
Only slightly, and I only disagree with the very last part of that. They didn't see you as an authority. You just said things and they thought about it and went, that seems to make sense. Like Ron Paul is a shining example of that.
Perfect example of that.
What?
Perfect example of that. Yes.
Yeah. He's gotten lots of people to start thinking about these things, many of whom are now anarchists, which is sort of funny. And I love the fact that he, in his closing statements on the House floor, he said about him what I said about him the whole time. I love the fact that he's spreading those ideas. Legislatively, he didn't do a damn thing. Him having that little piece of authority accomplished jack squat. And he said that himself. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, but you can look it up. It's online. He basically said, when the people actually want freedom, they'll get it. They're not going to get it by way of legislation and elections.
But
and
didn't he do the right thing?
No. I mean, it's a way to get attention. And what he used that attention for was to try to educate people. And that was perfectly fine. Even that, there's a built-in hypocrisy to it of saying that, well, we have to vote these people into power in this position. It's like saying, oh, don't believe that voodoo guy who pretends he has all these magic powers to like put a curse on you. I know, I'll become the new voodoo guy and convince you all that I have magic powers to put curses on you. And then I'll describe to you how there's no such thing as voodoo guys who have power over you.
Wouldn't
It's
that be
inherently
awesome?
hypocritical.
Yes, but wouldn't it be awesome? Yes, it's hypocritical. And wouldn't it be awesome? Aren't those two things true?
Sort of, kind of, except you start by spreading a message that's in the exact opposite direction. You start by sliding backwards because you're immediately legitimizing the game. The closest campaign that I've ever supported, and I never in a million years would have voted for him, and he would have been mad if I did, was a friend of mine, Patrick Smith in Texas, who said, I don't believe in this at all. I'm a voluntarist, but if they will put me in front of an audience, I will tell people voting for me is stupid. Voting for anybody is stupid. Why do you think appointing a master over yourself is sane or going to end well? I'm just a guy. And if you're dumb enough to vote for me, I'll still just be a guy. I won't have any new rights. So he went out of his way to make fun of the whole political process, which the Libertarian Party does not do. They put on a show like the process matters, like votes matter, like legislation matters. All of that reinforces the notion that people need the legal permission of the ruling class to be free. And anybody who thinks that is already a slave. If you need somebody else's permission to be free, you're not. No matter what he says, you're not.
Well, okay. So what you've said on this show in the last 45 minutes is that democracy is worse than dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
And that Ron Paul is basically screwed up.
No, just the method of going into politics, which he didn't focus on that. I mean, he was Dr. No, he voted against all of that. Yeah, but he wasn't like, vote for me, I'll fix the world. He's like, no, you can't fix the world in here. So he did a really good job of getting lots of people to think about things from a bully pulpit that was worthless and illegitimate. But like, okay, some people listened to him, and a bunch of them became anarchists. But the moment the discussion becomes, we need to change this law, you're already totally, completely lost. Because what you're saying is, We don't have the right to do X until those politicians change their scribbles and say we're allowed to do it.
But hold on, let me give you 2 examples. You tell me if I'm wrong on both of these. All right. You've told me I'm wrong on everything, so I'm probably wrong on these 2. All right. So let me walk down these 2 examples. Example number 1, the Fed, right? Now, clearly, I'd like to end the Fed. Clearly, I would, right? Obviously. With that in mind, I used to do a lot of teaching, and I was doing some training for city agencies of New York City. One of the agencies I was training, they knew I was political, but we made a deal. I don't talk politics at all unless it's during a break and they ask. Otherwise, I say nothing about politics. And I followed that rule because I was paying my bills, so I kept my mouth shut, right? So I kept my mouth shut. I took my check and I went home, right? But one day there's a break. And in this room, there's a room of about 25 people. Which, if you can imagine, these are all city agency employees. Youngest is maybe 30, oldest is maybe 60, all of them credentialed, all educated, right? And one guy says, talking, he goes, man, I'm so glad we had the Fed. They saved us during the crash. That's what he says. So I bite my tongue because I want to get paid. So I say nothing. I say not a word. Just look over here. But then one of the guys said, hey, Larry, you're into politics. That's true, right? And I was like, okay, now you fucked up.
Now you invited it.
Because now you asked, right? So now I can say something. But I was actually good to them. What I said was, you guys know the Fed's not really part of the government at all, right? You're like, what? So it's just a banking cartel. Just all it is, banking cartel. That's all it is. It's private. You can't just audit it. It's a private company. They're like, no, it isn't. I said, look it up. You got your phones? They look it up. None of them knew that. Larken, 25 government employees, educated, credentialed between the age of 30 and 60. Not one of them knew that. Yep. Then I said, you know, it just makes money out of it. Just makes money. Just makes it. And they're like, no, it doesn't. You got your phone. Look at it. It's just it just makes money. And you just hear people going, Why do I tell you that story? Because I didn't just yell, "End the Fed," because they would think I'm stupid and crazy. They wouldn't hear me. They would have shut me out. They wouldn't have heard a word I said. I would have got my outcome would have been garbage. I wanted a good outcome. I wanted the government employees to understand how the Fed worked so that they would be in the future, to your point, anarchist at one point, right? That's what I want this to happen. I want to become voluntarist. I want them to become that. That's what I want. So I did that. I feel like you would say, no, I should have kind of slapped them with end the Fed.
No, that was just sort of polite tactics of, you didn't start by saying the Fed is awesome, we don't die without it. Now let me try to explain to you why it's bad. But running for office does that. It basically says, yes, this game is legitimate. Yes, whoever gets the most buttons pressed next to their name has the right to rule. Yes, the scribbles that come out of DC are legitimate and we need them changed. Now let me describe for you why none of that is true. So but the Fed is actually a fine example, because how many people have loudly been saying, end the Fed? Is there still exactly as many the Feds with exactly the same power as the first time anybody did that? What if 50 million people said, all right, this might be scary at first, we're going to use a currency the Fed doesn't approve of. And when their thugs in government come to enforce it, we're going to stop them. And if there's 50 million of us, we win. Whereas if 50 million of us vote to end the Fed, it accomplishes exactly nothing at all, which is what it has.
Here's the problem with that. You're asking human beings to end a system that makes them feel comfortable, even if it's slavery, they still feel comfortable. It makes them feel comfortable for the hope of nothing. Right? Now, you look in your mind and go, no, I'll be free, I'll be fine, I'll find an answer, blah, blah. The average American goes, as I said earlier, no, we'll all be dead in the streets. It'll be Mad Max, and Larken will have a gun, and he'll shoot me and take my gas. That's what they're going to be thinking. That's how they're going to act, right? So don't I have to give them some hope of, no, it'll be okay. Here's how it can work. Because if I don't give them that, what happens is the only people that I can get on my side are going to be people who either have gone down a very far road like you've gone down, or people who have nothing to lose. Now, we are actually on our way to people having nothing to lose, which I am unhappy about, but that is what's happening. We're on our way to that right now. That's the trajectory of people having nothing to lose. But when people have nothing to lose, they very often, if there isn't an answer, they simply replace one master with another. And in fact, not just that, they beg for it. When there is anarchy, to a point where anarchy meaning chaos, not anarchy meaning voluntarism, anarchy as when you say, the reason why I don't use the word anarchy, I say a voluntary society, because when you say the word anarchy, the connotation is chaos.
Yeah.
Correct. The connotation is chaos. So when they see anarchy or chaos, which is how they see it, they're going to say, no, I will take a dictator. I will take the guy. I will make him a king. Fine. Make him a king. Whatever. I have to make sure that Larken can't shoot me and take my gas. So fine, put him in jail. Am I wrong on this?
No, on that, absolutely not. And that's why it is a learning process. It's the same as, and this is really sad, but this was reality. Lots of slaves who were freed, like during the Civil War and after it or before or whatever, that was scary for them because they're like, I've never taken care of myself. Like, yeah, the master sucks and he whips me and stuff, but what am I going to do?
Yep.
So the fear of the unknown is massively powerful for people. And that's one of the reasons, we absolutely have to describe for them, it's not going to be Mad Max, and here's why, and here's how, all the good things that humanity needs would not only work without government, they'd work 1 trillion times better. The only thing we wouldn't have is basically societal permission for some people to be evil and be warmongers and do all kinds of nasty stuff. But that's why I take it from the moral approach, is because every single person is betraying his own conscience who advocates the system. The vast majority of people don't know that. They've never looked at it. They think, oh, well, voting is what you do. And if I vote for my neighbor to be taxed for this school, we do that, right? That's okay. That's legitimate. Yeah. That's the law. And it isn't until people go, I shouldn't do that. That's bad. That's just as bad as me going to my neighbor's house with a gun and saying, I can't really afford to educate my kid, so you're going to help me. Like, that's property taxes for schools.
Yep.
And the vast majority of people, as you know, have never thought about that. But until they get to thinking about that and change the underlying notion of statism, nothing fixes. And one of the most depressing examples that I have to point to, even though I'm very optimistic overall, is the fact that in Nazi Germany,
my friend, but go ahead. Go ahead.
In Nazi Germany, the main opposition were the communists. Like that's the spectrum of ideas, either authoritarian collectivism or authoritarian collectivism. It's just, you're doomed. The fact that you can point to nasty, horrible things that you don't like right now, which every Democrat can do, every Republican can do, every voter everywhere in pretty much every country can say, well, I don't like this and this and this and this. As long as people believe in political authority and think it's a real thing and think it's legitimate and think it's okay to control their neighbors by way of that, that's when you get the power vacuum phenomenon. Oh, no, nobody's in power. Who's our new master?
Yep.
Until the people go, why do we think we need a master? Why would we bow to anybody? The only reason that power vacuum happens is because in people's heads, they have been trained to think like slaves and trained to think that, well, we have to bow to somebody. There has to be an authority. We can't just be like grown-ups and use our own conscience and reason. Like, that would be chaos and mayhem. So it's a process of humanity literally outgrowing the insanity of statism, but nothing else is going to fix this. Because as long as that's there, the slaves can say, we don't like how often you whip us. Well, guess whether the master cares. Well, we want a new master. Oh, he whips us too. Darn it. Well, we want a new until the mindset of the subjects, the people, changes, the game just goes around in circles. Which is why, to me, all the warmongering, all of that is just symptoms of statism. The beauty is when you pull the plug on that, all the rest goes away. The Fed goes away. The military-industrial complex collapses. Socialism collapses. Because if people say, wait, none of us are obligated to give our money to these crooks? We're not morally obligated to obey their crappy laws? Well, then why are we paying any attention to what any of them say? Let them rant in a corner about how important they are. They won't matter, especially since even their enforcers are us. Like we're enforcing it on ourselves.
I want to go to international in a second, but before that, I have to talk to my audience. I'm talking to my audience here. Guys, if you like what Larken's talking about, you can follow him on the Rose channel if you like to. You can go and follow him over there. The link is in the description on Facebook. It's also a description on Rumble and a description on YouTube if you want to. Please check him out if you would. That'd be great. But there's another place where you can actually check him out. You'll be thinking, where is there some other place I can check him out? There is. He is actually also on Civil. That's true. He is on Civil. One of the people who, of course, of so many people who are on Civil, he's one of them. And if you want to, you can go check out Civil, CIVL.com. And when you sign up, you put in code Larry, it's 50% off, $25 for the entire year. Now, talking about taxation theft, that's theft. You are robbing Civil with that. You are worse than taxation when you do that. But please do anyway. Go over there. And this is one of the shows that he's actually on, the Voluntarism Conference from 2024. Liberty on the Rocks. And you can watch this if you want.
Alrighty, who here is to blame for the problems of the world? I mean,
he's starting trash off the bat in this one. He opens up with he's already yelling at people. You want to watch that? You can do so. Please head on over to Civil, CIVL.com. Put in the code Larry for 50% off, and you can enjoy it. Please. Also, of course, the best part is tomorrow's show, Wednesday show, is only on Civil, 7 p.m. You want to watch me say cool stuff where no one else can see it? $25 a year. Not that bad. Cheap, guys. Totally cheap. You're robbing them. It's all good. Not just that, guys. I want to make sure you know something. There'll be no show Thursday or Friday or Saturday. Why? Because I've quit? No, because I will actually be this weekend live in New York. I will be up in New York, upstate, Thursday through Saturday. Please check out any of my social media. I have 9 stops I'm making. So if you're in that area, if you are in Madison County, if you're in Oneida County, you're in Jefferson County, I'm Washington County, Dutchess County, I'm all over the place. Come see me, say hi. Free to show up, but they're all local businesses. So please buy something at local business. Buy a cup of coffee if you don't have a lot of cash. Buy a meal if you got some cash. But please support the places that I'm going to. Please check them out to the best of your ability. I will also be at a VFW also in Lewis County. Support them. Support our veterans. I'm an American Legion also. Support our veterans. If you want to come by, it's free, but please buy something. Buy beer. If you're going to have a beer at the VFW. How about that? See, not so bad. Talk to me. And you can yell at me if you want to and tell me what I should have said to Larken. You should have said this. I would have got him if I were you, Larry. Okay, you can tell me how I screwed this whole interview up. Go ahead. But show up and stop talking trash. Show up instead. That's all I'm saying. So you can do that. All right, I'm sorry. I've talked to my audience now, Larken. Let me move on to the next piece. I've yelled at my audience enough. So let me grab a couple of comments if I could. I do want to grab some comments. There's so many of them. All right. Destro 7000 says, Larken is an exceptionally good speaker and the Fed. Okay, there we go. I like that. That Liberty Lady says, looking forward to this. Been listening to Larken Rose content for a while now. All right, there we go. You got some fans. Johnson says, been looking forward to this all day. Okay, we're good here. We got people who are liking you. Right? Someone's got to be mad at you. I hope at least.
Come on. Got to bring on the hate.
Yeah, someone's got to be. Michael says, the American system doesn't need repair for the folks paying for it through PAC money. Oh, I see. So his point is, why repair it for the people who are actually getting what they want?
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I think he's correct in that, right? This system is working the way it's supposed to work.
Yes.
Right? I think that's accurate. Yeah, yeah, that's true. So, all righty, let me grab some more here.
Speaking of which, anyone who hasn't seen Jones Plantation, go watch it and see how uncomfortable it makes you.
How can they watch it? Tell them how they can watch it.
It is on Amazon. It's on Apple TV. It's also at JonesPlantationFilm.com. And if you're thinking, oh, it's a movie about the evils of slavery, we've heard that a million times. Nope, it isn't. If you're thinking it's about racism, no, it isn't.
It's not.
I guarantee whatever you think it is, it's not going to be that.
I've seen it. It's not that.
So,
it's not that. Yes.
Not that. So check it out and see how uncomfortable it makes you about your own belief system.
It will make you uncomfortable. Not because of the racism, but because of the race that's included. That's what will make you feel awkward. It's not racist, but there's race stuff in it, which you'll be like, oh, boy. I think, can I watch this? Because there's going to be some of that. So, yeah, there will be some of that. Yes.
There's plenty to be uncomfortable about. philosophically.
Mastermind Hour says evil is just a moniker to allow good people to commit atrocities against people they don't agree with. I'm gonna go past that though. I think it's more than what Mastermind's saying. Your point, the reason why I feel government is so effective is because government can make the other evil, in which case the atrocities aren't atrocities, they're justice. Right. And I say this from my own example, right? When I was 17, I joined the Marine Corps. And I was, to be very forward, utterly brainwashed. No doubt. This is why I was joking about sending men to your house. When I was 19, I would have been one of those men. Like I would have done that. I would have gone and done the work. I'm very blessed that I was never in combat, because I would have done, I know who I was then. I would have done the dirty deeds. I would have done so based upon that my captain told me this guy deserved it. And I've done it because my captain told me so. And I would have ordered men to their death. I was a sergeant. I would have ordered men to their death. I would have done so, believing that I was doing the most righteous thing in the world.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that perfectly sums up the heinous threat that the belief in authority is. Incidentally, my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, is about exactly that, is people believing in authority. And it isn't just a matter of, people in power do nasty things. The belief in authority, it tricks the enforcers into doing evil, because, hey, if you disobeyed authority, you're the bad guy. If you had the wrong plant, or, had a slot machine when the politician said you're not supposed to, or you didn't pay to, or whatever, not only should we beat you up, but we should feel good about it. And you're the criminal for not obeying whatever arbitrary crap they decided to call law. It does the same thing to voters. It gives voters a supposedly legitimate way to violently dominate their neighbors. So the belief in authority, the problem isn't that bad people believe in authority, because whatever, they were going to be bad anyway. It's that it warps the mentality and thoughts and behaviors of otherwise good people and makes them cheerleaders for evil, or even literally direct enforcers for evil, like you were talking about. And the fact that it can do that to well-intentioned people, because I'm guessing you didn't join up thinking, I'm going to go do evil stuff, right?
No, not at all. Yeah. I thought I was doing the right thing.
The irony is that so many people think that, government is what keeps us in check. Like we'd all be like chaotic animals and violent and destruction if not for government. When what the belief in government actually does is it makes us all be violent animals by way of this thing called politics and law and government, and feel perfectly okay about it and hate the people who we victimize. Oh, that stupid pothead who got his door kicked in. Well, he deserved it because it's against the law. How many people rejoice? And like right now with the immigration thing, like some random person who's here working, not threatening or harming anybody. And some people are like, yeah, kick down his door and drag him away. Like totally initiating violence against him and going rah, 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 because it's legal. Because somebody wrote on a piece of paper, hey, you're not allowed to be on half a continent unless the politicians give you a piece of paper that says you're allowed to. And it's true in every direction. Republicans do it. Democrats do it. And I absolutely did it, by the way. I was absolutely a statist for a long time, conservative leaning, and I absolutely cheered for stuff that I now recognize as totally immoral. And back then I thought, well, it's the system we have. It's constitutional. There's statutes.
I used to think bombing worked.
Yeah.
I did. I'm embarrassed, but it's true. I used to think bombing worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't do what we say. Bomb them. Then they'll love us. And then they'll do what we say. I thought that worked. I was all in. Yeah. Just bomb them. It's fine. I was all in. I used to believe it.
It feels like a former life, but I was too. I had the sheriff's department and the Fraternal Order of Police stickers on my car and everything because I delusionally thought those are the good guys protecting us from bad guys. Well, no, not exactly. But the fact that my good intentions plus my belief in government authority made me a cheerleader for evil, that's the really bad news and the really good news. Because if you just remove the belief in authority from the vast majority of people, they don't want to be evil. They're not trying to advocate violence. They've just been taught that it's okay and legitimate and necessary to do it in this context and call it politics and
Well,
legislation.
no, I'm with you. I think if you just went to some people in the street and said, "Hey, Larken, and hey, Michael, Rick, do me a favor. I want you all to come together. I want to go to some other country and we're gonna start killing people." You'd be like, "Dude, no. What's wrong with you? No, it's fine. We're just gonna kill people. No, we're not gonna go kill. Look, it's the best part. We're gonna blow their houses up. It's gonna be amazing, and then we're just gonna leave. We're just gonna kill them, kill the families, and then we're just gonna leave." You'd be like, "No. Oh, wait. They're terrorists. Oh, okay. Let's go. Let's go. I'll get my gun. Let's go." Yeah, that's basically what happens. The government goes terrorists, and we go, "Oh, okay, great. Let's go bomb them then." Okay, I didn't realize that. You told me that you should start with that one, Larry. Start with terrorism, and kind of bury the lead there.
And there's so many examples that show how the belief in authority makes people insane. Like what you constantly hear from the military and everything. "Oh, there's a terrorist there, and we blew up this building and stuff." If I said, there's a really, really bad guy in my neighborhood, he's done horrible things, he lives like 2 blocks over, so I launched a bomb over there and leveled the building he was in, killed like 50 or 100 other people who had nothing to do with it, but I got the bad guy, 100% of my neighbors and everybody I know would say, "You're an insane mass murderer." Like, completely unrelated to how bad that one guy was. Like, you've never heard of a gun? What the hell is wrong with you?
Right.
But when the military does it, it's like, wow, collateral damage. I mean, these things happen in war, and we'll use weird euphemisms and stuff. And you have good people making excuses for literal mass murder.
That's the worst.
They think it's okay because of the government mechanism.
There was probably a 21 or 22-year-old tech sergeant who probably pulled that trigger. And that guy, years from now, probably not now, he probably still believes it was right. But years from now, when this goes away and we realize what happened, that guy has to live with that.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. Because he thought he was saving lives. He believed it. I know, I've been that guy. Mm-hmm. He thought he was saving lives. He pulled that trigger being, "Yes, I'm saving lives." That's what he did. And then he did that. And years later, he's going to be like, "What the hell did I do?" That's because an authority figure told him to, and he was trained his whole life to think that obedience to authority is a virtue, and it's not. It is the absolute opposite of responsibility and morality and humanity. So let me grab some stuff here. Rick says Marxism is a religion without a conscience. I think that's true, but I think it's true for a lot of politics. I don't think it's just Marxism, but yes, I agree with that. Mike says, you may not like democracy, but it works. China and North Korea are socialists, not democracies.
Look up their constitutions. They're democracies. And yes, they have constitutions, and you can look them up.
But here is a difference, though. And I'm going to go back to my connotation versus denotation. People say democracies. What they mean is people have some actual say in voting, and they can make some change in voting. That's what they mean when they say that. You are correct. North Korea is a democracy. That's true. So is China. But the reality of it is, connotatively, they're not. Denotatively, they are. Connotatively, Mike is correct. Connotatively, there is no way they change anything.
That is exactly true of American voters too.
No. We can change the paint on the house. Yes, we can. We absolutely can. You are incorrect. We can change the paint on the house.
Absolutely nothing that matters.
We absolutely can. We can decide what day the lawn gets, watered. We can decide that. Yes, we can. See, Obama said it. Yes, we can. He was right. See, you didn't know you were Obama supporter, Larken. You didn't know that. You are.
And that is the power of democracy. If people think they actually have some say in the matter. I mean, all Stalin had to do was bring in his brother and say, "You can vote which one of us is going to mistreat you." That's the American political system. They appoint, the system brings out these two puppets that most of the time nobody's ever heard. Like, who the hell knew who Obama was? Who knew who Kamala was, or Biden? Like, people who pay attention to politics knew that they were already parasites in the system. But the system parades out two choices and says, "Well, a vote for anything else is a wasted vote," which is actually technically sort of true too. And then,
No, it's not.
you just pick one.
Voting for whenever I run is never a wasted vote. Larken is incorrect. Anytime I run, voting for me is an amazing, awesome thing to do and super valuable. There is nothing more valuable than that in anything you do. Feeding your children is not as important or valuable as voting for me when I run. Larken is incorrect.
I'm glad to see your principles unfold.
There we go. I got my shit squared away. I know my principles lie. Here we go.
But if you can give the illusion of choice, which, by the way, watch Jones Plantation, the slaves will put up with way more than if they all the way knew they have no say. They still have no say in the matter. But if they think they do, then all of their time and effort is going to be wasted on that. Oh, incidentally, there's also a Jones Plantation novel that had more time to get into some of the subplots that don't fit in a movie. And that gets more into the democracy trick. I mean, the movie totally covers that too. But it gets more into the mentality of people don't want a scary confrontation. And if you tell them, oh, the way to change things on this nasty plantation is you go into this booth and you vote, and we can have a different plantation manager next time. And all the people who are upset and angry, it is designed to use up their energy, use up their hope, use up their time, use up their money, doing something that accomplishes nothing, so that then they're all exhausted and they go, oh, well, that didn't work. Maybe we'll try again in 4 years. Because if they didn't have that completely worthless outlet, they might do something that actually matters and disempowers the state.
Let me go to what Mastermind Hour says, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this too. He says, I don't see how America can pull out his tailspin without a benevolent dictator. And Ronald says the same thing, benevolent dictatorship. Is that the way to make this change? In other words, we have 350 or so million Americans. Is the only way a benevolent dictator? And here's the problem with this, is that we are kind of doing that now in many people's minds. There are tens of millions of Americans who are totally fine with someone like Trump being a benevolent dictator. Totally fine with it. In fact, I would argue that many of them, tens of millions of them, would voluntarily accept that if he were to openly say it, right? If he said, look, I just want to stay emperor because of states. I want to stay emperor until I drop dead. So can I just be benevolent, emperor? And there's tens of millions of Americans like, deal, yes. Oh my God. They would happily accept that. Tens of millions would not, obviously, but tens of millions would be happy to accept that as true. Is that the way of doing it here? Is that what are they actually doing what you want in a very weird way? Are they going down your road in a very horrible zigzag?
There is a way in which Trump is helping, which is making more and more conservatives disillusioned with the system. Not all of them. A bunch of them are still like covering their eyes as tight as they can to not admit what Mango Mussolini actually is. But a lot of people are like, oh, golly, we thought he was actually going to be anti-establishment, and he's growing the military and increasing taxes and doing all this. So a lot of people are learning the hard way that, voting for a different crook didn't help. But again, this points to the fact that if people are like, we need a dictator to do this, any focus on Washington, we have to do something there, you already lost. Because that's not where the problem is. The problem is between the ears of 300, however many million Americans, well, 7-some billion if you're going to count the whole planet, because it's the same problem around the whole planet.
True.
Of people believing an obligation to obey. You don't have to do anything to DC. You don't have to overthrow them. You don't have to do anything. If tomorrow 300 million Americans woke up and go, "What? Why were we giving them money or caring what they said?" There isn't even a battle. There isn't even a revolution. There's just we got our whole paycheck now. Cool.
Let me go to the 7 billion that you just mentioned. The world obviously is filled with people who want what they want, will happily use violence to get what they want, will happily use the power of whatever, any power, coercion they see fit to get what they want. Most of them don't care about the people who they'll use to do the deeds that are required to get whatever they want. Don't we need a government to protect us from the other governments, right? So since there are governments that are all bad, don't we want to have our own good monster to protect us from the, like, don't we want Godzilla to stop us from King Kong or King Kong from Mothra, whatever? Don't we want to have our own monster to protect us from the other monsters?
No, and I hear this very often. Like, lots of people say that and think that, but here's why that's sort of ridiculous. I'll try to be nice about this. There is one gang in the world capable of continually robbing the American people of a huge percentage of what they earn and produce. That is the U.S. government. If China came over, if the ruling class of China, never mind that it's logistically impossible, came over and tried to do that, people would resist. If any other government came over, people would resist. We already were conquered and robbed and enslaved by the only gang in the world can do it, because the enslavery that mattered wasn't by brute force. It was by this and convincing the victims that we're obligated to pay tribute to our Lord because he protects us from all those other governments who, like, none of them have a military that's like a tenth the size of just random armed Americans. Like, the number of just randomly armed normal American citizens literally outnumbers all of the militaries in the world. The only one capable of oppressing this people is the gang that this people imagines to have the right to do so. And again, that's the belief in authority. If some other foreign power came in, nobody would go, I guess they have the right to rule us. We'd rise up and rebel and yay. But as long as we're being enslaved by Americans, or think we are, I mean, half the time they're puppets of other tyrants anyway.
Let me walk down that road for a second.
Sure.
Have you seen the I think it's Amazon Prime series, The Man in the High Castle? Have you seen that series?
I saw some of it.
Okay, so let me, so you know what I'm talking about. It's fine.
Yeah.
In the series, right? It's an alternate universe where the Germans win World War II. They nuke DC and then conquer America in this alternate world. And so, like, the whole East Mississippi is all like part of the Greater Reich, and the West Coast is part of Japan. The way they show it, which I thought was shocking to me, but I thought was very telling, the way they do it is, whether you like the series or not is irrelevant. This is the piece I'm talking about. Americans just went right into fascism. Like, they were like, yes, okay, I guess we're Zig Highland. Let's do this. Right? They were just like that. They put the armbands on in 5 seconds. And I feel like what you're saying, if the right thugs came over, I think we wouldn't resist, is my point. I think, okay, if they were Chinese communists, yes, that's so far-fetched from Americans, but I'm not so sure if another, I don't know.
I totally do. The funny thing is, one advantage to the strong nationalism of Americans, which I think generally is a horrendously bad thing because it ties in with statism and loyalty to a ruling class, is that above probably any other population in the world, Americans aren't going to be keen on some dad-burn foreigners coming in and ruling us. Now, why the hell that's worse than being ruled by white guys? Like, so it's okay if you get like a huge part of your paycheck stolen and almost every aspect of your life violently controlled, as long as it's by white guys who speak English with an American accent. Like, that's the difference. But weirdly, there is that advantage that, you know, how many of the patriot militia types, like, if I see those light blue helmets of the frickin' UN in here, bad things are going to happen. And
right.
It's so ironic to me. It's like, so it's just the color of the helmet. Like, they're already stealing your guns. They're already stealing your money. They're controlling literally every aspect of your life. But you would super be rebellious if somebody who talked a little bit different did that to you. Like, how about have a principle and resist no matter who does that to you? But so that shows the power of authority, because it isn't just belief in any old authority. Because it's easy for Americans to look at, you know, Nazi Germany and Soviet Union and stuff and go, well, that was horrible and people should have disobeyed and resisted. Well, how about here and now? Oh, no, I was trained to bow to this ruling class. So if you disobey it, you're a nasty criminal and you deserve whatever they do to you.
All right, I gotta talk back to my audience again. All right, guys, you might say to yourself, I don't think that Larken is right. I think he's wrong on everything. Okay, you can think that if you want to. So here's how you can find out how close you are to him. You can head over to theadvocates.org and take the world's smallest political quiz. If you take the world's smallest political quiz, you will find out how close you are to him. You might be real close. You might be far away. This is actually someplace you can figure this out. Click the link that's in the description. Don't just go there. You got to click the link in the description. It's in Rumble. It's on YouTube and on Facebook. Click that description so they know you went there. Otherwise, I don't get credit, and then I cry. And you don't want to make me cry. That's cruel. See, don't be mean. Don't make me cry. Click that button. Go there and take it. Why does this matter? When you're done taking it, you will then share it, and other people will take it. And here's the thing that's interesting about this. And this is, guys, pop on over there, but I want to talk about it right now with you. Laura, you may not know this, but they've been doing this quiz for decades. I use it often. Here's what they found recently: an increase in authoritarianism. It's still the smallest one by far, right? If you look, it's the smallest by far. It's less than 10% still, but it's bigger than it's ever been. And I've taken this out to like when I do like Libertarian Party events, right? And I'll be at a booth or something, right? And I'll hand them out and have people take it. And people will score authoritarian, and they won't be like ashamed or surprised. They'll be like, oh, really? They'll be like, nah, that makes sense. Like they know it. They're like, yes, I am so into it. And the argument I provide here, this is my argument. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I think the argument is unhappy people want authoritarianism. Unhappy people want it. And that's one of the reasons in our Constitution, in our founding documents, in our Constitution, in our founding documents, where they talked about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Because happy people don't want authoritarianism, right? And I think that's the key aspect. I think we are becoming unhappier as Americans. And I'll add a second piece. Because our communities are failing. When you add government, you by default remove community. And as you remove community, you make people less happy. And so now we keep asking. It's a circle. It's that snowball. We keep asking for more government, more government, more government. We become unhappier, unhappier, and unhappier. Now, that was a good commercial, by the way, but for the advocates. That was good. So, guys, I did a good job. Go there. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Being unhappy and also being scared. And yes. The thing is, here's the thing that'll offend almost every statist. To me, there's no fundamental difference between a fascist and a Republican and a Democrat. As soon as you've accepted the premise that, well, those people over there have the right to control my neighbor and take my neighbor's money by force because it's law and it's legal and they're elected and all that stuff, why wouldn't you want to use the violence of government to do all sorts of good things? Well, I don't like those people, so I guess I have a law to beat them up. And I want to take care of these people, so I guess rob the hell out of people by way of taxes. Because the moment you accept the premise of, yeah, violent aggression, if done by way of the legal process and legislation, is perfectly legitimate and necessary and all that, if you accept that premise, why wouldn't you be a fascist? And the fact that like 0 Republicans and 0 Democrats are remotely close to the level of government and authoritarian control when the country began. All of them are fascists compared to that, like 1,000 times over.
But the only reason why humans don't like fascism is because of World War II. Prior to World War II, they named their parties the fascist party of so-and-so. Like fascism was like, that was okay. It was because of the man with the funny mustache. I don't want to get canceled on YouTube. The man with the funny mustache from Austria, not Germany, by the way. He was Austrian. Anyway, the Austrian. So when he came over, that's why it became bad. Otherwise, people would be like, nah, that's fine. We're fascists. It's so cool. They didn't mind it at all.
Yeah, and the fact that if you ask somebody, and the fact that the Third Reich was also heavily socialist and said lots of lovely socialist things, and most people don't understand that. They just sort of, oh, that name means something bad, right? Okay, well, right. What? And I actually made a video ages ago called "Why Is You-Know-Who Bad?" And it isn't that he isn't, it's that most people just go, well, he's bad. Okay, right. Why? What happened? And the answer is because he's an authoritarian collectivist and believes that sacrificing the rights of the individual for the common good is okay. Just like every Republican believes and every Democrat believes and almost every single voter believes and every fascist and every communist and every supporter of government, they just nitpick about the details. They all have the attitude of, if only the state would use violence to impose my values and ideas onto everybody,
Yeah.
then things would be great. That's
I always say government's awesome when you're on this side of the gun.
Right. Right.
Great when I'm on this side. It's great.
Yeah. And that's another reason why my focus is mainly showing people that if you believe in government, you are betraying your own conscience. Again, it's not whether I approve of what you're doing, because who the hell am I to, whoever's listening to this, but you are doing things that do not match what you think about right and wrong. You are being tricked to betraying your own soul, your own conscience, whatever you want to call it, your own moral judgment, to cheer for evil because you've been convinced that if you cheer for evil by way of political power, it's good and it's legal and it's necessary.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason that's good news, weirdly enough, is that if you had a world of genuinely like violent, nasty people, well, I'm just running off in the woods and hiding somewhere because you're not going to talk them into being nice. What we have is some really nasty people who wield political power and a huge number of well-intentioned people who think of themselves as the good guys and mean well and have been tricked into supporting this heinous monstrosity only because they believe in authority, and it stops working when they let go of that superstition. And then the evil people, they're still going to be evil people, but they won't have several billion good people funding them and obeying them and being their enforcers.
So, guys, if you want to get your chat to the front, you can do so if you want to. And you know what you do? Super chat me. You can super chat me on YouTube if you want to, or rant me on Rumble. Gets it right to the front. I know some of you are like, I want to yell at Larken. Well, then you can do so. I'm getting there. You got to give me some time. You got so many damn people doing this. It's great. I'm happy. But you want to go to the front? It's not free. Just saying. It's not free. We are capitalists. I mean, you may not like it, but we are. So, yes, do that. Also, if you want to, you can also become a member. Membership's important. Click that join button. $49 per month makes this work better. I actually was on time today. And I'm not always on time. Why? Because I got to work during the day. I got bills to pay. I have to make sure that I pay my masters so Larken can call me a status or insult me, however, whatever. I got to have some way he can call me a immoral person or whatever. That's why I pay my bills, so he can call me immoral. That's what I do. So I can stop doing that. If you guys give me $49 per month, Larken could stop calling me a status and call me immoral. See? Why do you want him to insult me? It's your fault. Anyway, so please do it if you could. Also, subscribe if you would to Sharpe Way on YouTube and click all notifications. It does matter. Every bit matters. Becoming a member has one other value. We have a membership show September 5th. Now, what I do, so you understand, Larken, because I don't want to keep people out. So many people have like member-only shows where only members can watch. I don't have that. My members get to come on the show with me. And everyone watches me and them because I'm super cool like that. You are now jealous. And it's okay. You can be jealous, Larken. It's fine. I am a good-looking guy. People are jealous. In any case, so I want to make sure we cover that piece before we go on. Let me grab, guys, thank you so much. And it all comes in. Guys, thank you so much. Gifting. Johnson, thank you for the gift of membership. Guys, grab a membership if you would. I appreciate it. Daniel jumping on board, gifting a membership. Please go ahead, guys. Grab those memberships. And Phil jumping on board. If you don't have membership, grab one of these, please. The more members, the better. Guys, thank you so much for gifting memberships. Everyone does count. I appreciate it. All right, let me grab a couple more comments if I can. All right, there are a lot of them out here. All righty. Let's see. I think Mike is mad at you. Yeah, I think Mike's mad at you. He's got a couple things. He's been saying a couple things against you. He says, Larken, then you need to convince community to change laws. As a member of society, you participate in the rules of society, or you can move. And good luck finding better options elsewhere. I'm sure you hear that, don't you?
All the time. Yep. It is the mentality of an absolute slave. Because what it means is you have to obey the masters or you're a bad person. Because that's what law is. It's arbitrary garbage made up by masters. And the idea that community and law somehow count as the same thing, when law literally, in that context, literally refers to the dictates of a bunch of basically the worst people in the world, a bunch of political parasites. If you take pride in obeying the dictates of a bunch of warmongering, I can't even say half the things they are without getting your channel in trouble.
But let me give you pushback. What if it wasn't government? He said community. So what if it wasn't government? What if it was my community world that I talked about, right? That where I'm going to throw you out because you don't want to pay for the courts, right? Well, in that case, if I start a voluntary community similar to the Amish, as they are the closest that I could find to a libertarian community. I mean, they're not exactly, but they're the closest that I could find. So if I start a community similar to the Amish, and you now say, well, look, I know I agree, but I don't like these laws now. I know I agreed to follow these rules. I don't want to follow these rules anymore. I think they're bad now, or I'm in a mistake or whatever. And I go, good, pack your trash, leave.
Yeah, they have every right to say, well, get off our property. Now, they don't own half
it's your property, though. No. Your property. You purchased the property from the community. It's your property, but it's in the community that you agreed to be part of.
Well, yeah, if I purchased it with the agreement, I'll abide by these rules.
Yep.
And then I decide I'm not abiding by your rules, then I sell the property.
But you don't want to sell a property. You say, no, it's my property. And I go, I'm calling my boys over then.
That's breach of contract. That's if I said, yeah, I won't play my music as loud as possible at 3 a.m, and then I do.
But don't most Americans see what Mike is saying, which is you are part of an American society and you know the rules in American society. And if you don't like American society, shouldn't you then leave? Isn't what Mike is saying is the concepts are the same. I think that's what Mike is saying.
Yeah, and they're not at all in any way, shape, or form. That is absolute BS that we were taught to believe, that the arbitrary dictates of political parasites are somehow the description of how to be a moral community and society. And they're literally the exact opposite. Because the first thing every government does is say, we're allowed to steal. We're going to call it taxation because it sounds better, but we're allowed to rob you. So one of the rules is if you're going to be anywhere on this half a continent, you will pay tribute to the ruling class or we will rob you or cage you. And if anybody feels obligated to go along with that because they think that is the measure of, well, I'm being a good neighbor and I'm being a good community member because I give money to warmongers, that is the twisted mentality that comes from statism. If you were saying, like, don't be mean to your neighbors and don't be a jerk and do what you said you were going to do and do what you agreed to do, or they might kick you out of the place they own, you can go off in the woods and do whatever. Yeah, absolutely. That's basic decency and basic morality and basic interacting with other human beings. None of that suddenly equates to, by the way, those people have the right to violently dominate us for some reason because rituals and documents. That is the precise opposite of a moral society or a community where people say, well, we abide by our agreements and we don't assault each other and we don't steal our stuff. Guess what never does that? Government. It always assaults people. It always steals other people's stuff.
You're not wrong.
It's inherently evil and immoral.
Andrea knows me. She says Larry sends out his thugs take your business. True. Yes, she's right. I'm not a murderer. That's why I have these men. So yes,
I'm glad you're honest about it.
Yeah, I'm not a murderer. That's why I have these men. That's it. I'm not a thief. That's why I have these men. So yes.
Well, it's sort of funny because one of the things I ask people, statists to do is literally describe if it's like I think marijuana should be illegal or a tax to fund schools or whatever it is that you want government to do. Literally describe what you want to have done to somebody who disobeys. Like somebody didn't pay the taxes that fund your giving to the poor or something.
Yep.
Literally describe what you want to have done to that person. And then either say,
you asked me,
you did.
I did. I said, I'm throwing you out. You got to go. You don't want to go. I'm coming after you and I'm throwing you out. And I'm going to give you some money if you don't sell it. But I'm going to give you what I want. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. And you did. The vast majority of statists very quickly get uncomfortable because they don't want to say, I believe in giving to the poor and coming to your house with a gun and putting you in a cage if you don't give whatever arbitrary amount I decide you owe for the generosity that I'm violently inflicting on you. Almost nobody who votes for that, there's a few, but almost nobody who votes for that would say out loud, yes, I would do that on my own. No law, no badge, no special authority. Just I'm going to violently rob you to give to the poor. So either you would feel okay with doing that and at least you're consistent. You're bonkers and immoral, but at least you're consistent in asking government to do it. Or for the vast majority of people, they say, I'd never do that. I mean, you used that example earlier. I wouldn't do that myself. Then why the hell do you think it's okay to ask government to do it? Oh, because you were trained to believe that authority is a thing, that the master really does have the right to do things that us mere mortals don't. So if you ask him to whip your neighbor and steal their stuff, that's perfectly legitimate. You can't do it as a mere peasant because that would be bad. But as long as you do it by way of elections and petitions and all that.
So let me make sure you trigger the rest of the audience who haven't triggered yet. And we're going to talk about the Constitution. All right.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I knew it would. Rick, this is your fault, Rick. I'm blaming you. I have not seen a thing with more efficacy for liberty than the Bill of Rights and separation of powers in the U.S. Constitution. Because I think the best means we have to achieving maximum liberty is the means that got us to this sorry set of things. Conditioned existence is not perfectible. Okay, interesting concepts. He's saying the Constitution is the best thing we have. Do you agree?
No, and I'll make sure to offend all people who like the Constitution, because I'll say about them exactly what I say about communists. If your great idea, when applied to the real world, results in mass murder and huge authoritarianism, your idea sucks. And the Constitution, which was the best attempt ever at creating a limited servant government, created the largest authoritarian empire in the history of the world, with the biggest standing army and the biggest extortion racket ever anywhere. That was the real world result of the Constitution. So no, having a tiny seed of authority is not better. It's still slavery.
But then isn't the answer then culture? Isn't the answer culture? And what I mean by that is to give credit to some of our founding fathers. There were certain things they said that made sense, particularly for their time, right? George Washington said, as an example, don't get involved in treaties, right? That was one thing, is don't get involved in these dumb alliances. Don't do that. That's dumb. Don't do that. He was right. Mm-hmm. But the sad part is we said, oh no, this is different because, right? What insert reason, right? This is different because he said, don't have political parties. And we went, great, right. Well, but because reasons, right? And then that happens. So isn't it culturally, if Americans, to your point, would have said, when someone said, hey, let's get a treaty, would have said, dummy, no. He's told us don't do it. What's wrong with you? Stop. We're not doing stupid treaties. We're not doing that, right? And when someone would have said, hey, we went to war over 3% tax, that should be like the maximum we ever accept in the history of the world ever. Like if we, because again, we know that in 1776, we went to war over 3% tax. So, right, 3%, and we were bodying people, right? That's what happened. We were bodying people with 3% tax, right?
And not an income tax. It's a tax on like tea and pieces of paper. Like
we were like, you gone. Sorry, I'm smoking you. I am smoking you over 3% tax. That's who we were. Now, if we were still those people today, there's no way there's income tax. Like there's just no way. There's no way income tax doesn't exist.
And that's why I think
stretching at 3% tax for like, I don't know, sales tax. We'd be stretching at that.
Mm-hmm. And I think the best thing that the founders and the Constitution and more the Declaration of Independence did was give the world the best possible example of how tiny limited authority is a heinously stupid idea and will end in complete disaster. The fact that this limited constitutional republic was very quickly, way more oppressive than a literal king should have been a hint. But it's basically, well, let's try this out and see what happens.
But you just made a statement that I want to clarify here. You just said that we are worse than a king. What was the phrase you used? More oppressive than a king?
Yeah, very quickly the U.S. government was way more oppressive to the people in these colonies than King George ever was.
But, okay, King George, yes. But aren't dictators actually worse? Or do you honestly think they're not worse? Was that provocative, you saying that? Or was that something you honestly believe?
It's literally statistical. Look at the top most murderous regimes. They're all democratically elected constitutional republics. No king has ever killed as many people as the top, what?
Okay, no. Hold on. You didn't say
12.
king. hold on.
Oh,
Earlier you didn't
dictator.
say king. You said dictator. There's a difference. Now,
Yeah.
even you can have dictators in democracies.
Yeah.
I mean, the Roman Republic created dictators voluntarily.
Yeah.
So you can have dictators in a democracy.
Yeah. So they're not even mutually exclusive. And the Nazis were elected into power coming out of the Weimar Republic, which had a Bill of Rights, and it let people vote. And they geniusly put in Article, 33, that said, well, if there's an emergency, we better suspend civil rights.
Because reasons.
Right, because reasons.
Right.
But it's actually, and I'm not trying to mock people and be too mean. I'm good at being mean, but I'm not trying to be mean. Because for a very long time, I thought the Constitution was awesome and the Bill of Rights was genius and all that. A number of the founding fathers, they sort of get lumped together. Like the anti-federalists were way closer to the target than the federalists. And they said, this is going to be a freaking disaster. Like Patrick Henry totally knew the catastrophe it was going to be. And I've heard rumor that Thomas Paine may have been like a closet anarchist because a lot of his writings sure sounded like that. And when you're among the people who go, at best, government is a necessary evil, it's like, that sort of implies that you think it might not be necessary.
Right.
So you had the anti-federalist, but to answer your question, because I sort of wandered off that, about culture, and culture and philosophy overlap a whole bunch.
Sure.
They're sort of the same thing. A lot of what happened around that period was really important and like kind of drastically different. I mean, there's pieces of that going back into British law and stuff like that. But it demonstrated that if you have all these notions of it's self-evident, the person is, unalienable rights and all that stuff, and the king has no right to do any of this stuff, and we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to create this tiny little boom. Oh, it's literally the biggest empire in the history of the world. It's like, okay, maybe if we try again, we can skip the part of making a tiny little authority and instead just be grown-ups that take the concepts of inalienable rights.
All right. First piece I want to grab. Daniel, thank you for becoming a member for 7 months, my friend. I appreciate it. He says, sugar/money feeds cancer/corruption. Does the government need to go on keto? Yes. Keto is magic. There is no doubt. It has magic powers. Keto cures everything. You wouldn't know this, Larken. This is an ongoing thing in my people. Keto has magic powers. You have any problem at all, go on keto. It is magically cured. Don't science me, Larken. It's magic. It just works.
If you sever a limb, just eat a steak and it'll grow back.
Done. It grows right back. In fact, stronger than ever. You actually get a stronger arm from keto.
You may get a spare arm. You get an extra.
You might get 2 or 3 of them. Exactly right. Keto is magic. So he is correct. Thank you, Daniel, for your 7 months. So then let me go to the piece though here. If that's a bad idea, what is the answer? Is a piece of paper the answer? Is an agreement the answer? How do we get 350 million people, give or take, to have the right answer and then be able to either defend ourselves from and or convince the other 7.65 billion people to go the same way? This seems like a giant task that I think is, yes. How do we do this?
And that's why people are often surprised that I'm optimistic, because it's a monumentally huge task. It's what I've kind of devoted the last 30 years of my life to, is trying to get people to rethink the status crap they were taught. And as difficult as that may seem, I think it's absolutely inevitable that humanity is going to outgrow the notion of authority and state power and governments entirely. Between now and then, lots of nasty things will happen. The thing is, I think it's actually going to happen a lot faster than I would have said if you asked me 20 years ago, because I assumed, well, I'll be banging my head on a brick wall and talking to nobody, and maybe in a few hundred years, like lots of people will figure out maybe we shouldn't have ruling classes. But I actually think it's going there a lot faster, because at the end of the day, the question that matters is, when you have your conscience and you have the dictates of government authority, which wins? Which matters more? And again, some people will obey, in certain situations just to avoid getting their kneecap smashed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our moral conscience. Do we obey authority, or do we obey what we think is right, using our own judgment? And that's just a binary choice. And as much as people are still statists and voting for masters and falling for the stupid game, more and more humanity has been drifting towards a distrust of authoritarianism, even among people who are still cheering for it. Because most of the people who voted for Trump did so because they thought he was going to be anti-establishment, which I made fun of before he was ever in office. But they wanted him there because they thought he was going to break down their system and he's going to undo this. It's not because they're like, yeah, we like government control of pretty much everything. They thought he was going to be different. They shouldn't have. He wasn't. He was already their puppet. And a lot of them are learning that the hard way.
But hold on. I feel like this wasn't okay. So is it just everyone tomorrow goes, all right, we're not going to vote? I mean, I don't know. See, I think most people, I was talking about the idea of there's got to be a plan, right? I have a plan. My plan is when I run, vote for me, I will make magic happen. Done. That's my plan. Easy plan. People get it, right? Done deal. I'll go on Joe Rogan and all of a sudden everyone will listen to me and we'll all be libertarian tomorrow. That's my plan. Now, you might think that's a silly plan, but Larken, I got a plan. My question is, and when people have no plan or bad plan, they take bad plan. That's how that works, because fear stops them from no plan. My worry, Larken, is you have no plan, which means people are going to be afraid. That is my worry.
Yeah, and I don't even disagree with that. And it's funny because government trains people to try to think in terms of centralized master plans. Like, oh, all these poor people, government, what are you going to do about it? Like a bad job, and they're going to make it worse, and they're going to make people dependent, make a catastrophe. But at least they have a plan. And so any politician that runs for office that says, I'm going to build this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have this huge department solving this and solving that, people basically fall into the child mindset of, oh, good, so we don't have to. Government's going to save the day. And it never, ever does. It's literally a matter of growing up until you stop expecting some mythical superhuman entity to fix anything. And if you go, oh, there's some poor people in need. Okay, do you have a little bit of spare money? Okay, there. Yeah, but there's millions of them. Yeah, there's also hundreds of millions of the rest of us. And the idea that we all have to address the problem of all the poor people in the whole country, why? Why that arbitrary line? Like, help the people you know in your town. And when it comes to, there's violent, nasty people, okay, do something to stop them. And if you don't know how, find somebody who does know how, maybe pay him to patrol the streets. Now, don't pretend he has superhuman rights. He's still just a guy. So he's not police. He doesn't suddenly have the right to kick down your door and make sure you're not doing anything the politicians do. He's just a guy. As soon as people get into the mindset of, oh, damn it, we're the grown-ups, humanity very often becomes impressive. Like when there's a disaster and like you can't call 911, like the road just washed away or this blew up or something. Yep. A bunch of people go, well, crap, it's on us. Get in the boat. We have to go help these people.
Yeah, but see, here's my all worry. They have. Here is my worry, Larken, is we're less and less that way. Yeah. Because we have been trained that government will fix it. We have been, as I said before, when you add government, you remove community. And we saw during the lockdowns. During the lockdowns, you saw so many communities, they've lost the institutional knowledge to support themselves, right? Yeah. And I look at this specifically in the Black community. And Killer Mike said this in Atlanta years ago, and it made so much sense. I mean, it's controversial, but he made it was a valid point. He said, at least during segregation, the Black family could support itself because it had to. You had to have a Black lawyer because you couldn't go to the white one. You had to have a Black shoemaker because you couldn't go to the white one. You had to have a Black diner because you couldn't go to the white one. So you had to create an environment where you supported each other. Yeah. But government stepped in and said, no. I'm not saying I'm anti-segregation, neither is he. I mean, neither what I'm saying about, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying what happened was, instead of just allowing communities to grow, government stepped in and controlled everything. And now communities don't know how to support themselves anymore. They don't know how. It's a problem.
Yeah, and it'll be a rough road because government trained people to be helpless and dependent and
Yes.
ignorant. So that we have to go, oh, big daddy government, save us from whatever the problem is this week. And that was intentional. And one of the, like, I'm sure you're familiar with the works of Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams,
Sure,
who wrote at great length at how, I mean, kind of like what you were just talking about,
yes,
all the supposedly altruistic, like, welfare state stuff to, like, help the inner city blacks did way more harm than literally just complete jerk racists who are like, well, we can recognize you, you're a jerk. If you all the way attack us, we might have to defend ourselves. But the mentality.
Thomas Sowell said the black family survived centuries of slavery, decades of Jim Crow, but was destroyed by government policies.
Yeah.
Yes.
I absolutely think that was intentional, which is just so freaking heinous, especially since it's done by the people of, like, oh, we care about minorities. Like,
yes,
you're the ones who pushed the evil crap that destroyed the community. Like Walter Williams, I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia, and he grew up in Philly, like dirt poor, and talked about how we didn't lock our doors.
Yeah,
and we had both. We knew how to read.
I say all the time, people say violence comes from poverty, and I say no. I grew up in the South Bronx. That's most poor people aren't violent. Violence comes from the black market. Yeah, and the black market's created by government.
Absolutely,
that's where violence comes from. Violence comes from the black market. Violence does not come from poverty. It comes from the black market, and the black market's created by government.
And that's a step that's usually an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people who've never thought about any of this, because they at least want to think, well, these government programs that failed horribly, well, they meant well. And they don't want to think, oh, wait, gun control was, like, I mean, it was openly racist to begin with.
Openly.
They openly said so.
Yep.
And the war on drugs, well, they just wanted people to not be addicted to. No, they created the black market that made this violence, and they know it.
Yep.
The Mexican drug cartels exist entirely because of the U.S. war on drugs. The idea that we're going to fight them. You know how you can fight them? Repeal your stupid laws, and literally Walmart will put all the cartels out of business tomorrow.
Done. In about 6 months, they'll be done. That's correct. Yeah. Yes, that's all it is. Yes.
But most people don't want to imagine how intentionally evil people who gravitate towards power really are. And they want to think, well, the welfare state made this, the public housing is a disaster, and this is a disaster. But they meant well. No, they didn't. I mean, the voters probably did, because they thought, well, we're helping the poor.
Yes. The voters did. I agree. The voters did think so. Yes.
And the thing is, and I'm going to harp on this again, I know I'm a broken record, without the belief in authority, none of that happens. If you don't have a government that people feel obligated to send money to, then when people find out, wait, you're totally wasteful and your system's a disaster. If we want to care for the poor, we're going to give to this charity over here. We actually know where the money goes. We know the people. We know they're good. They're not like psychos. Instead of, no, you're going to fund government charity, or we're going to put you in a cage. So, and again, this is a bad news and good news situation. So many problems fix if people stop believing in authoritarianism without the people ever understanding how anything worked. Like the Federal Reserve, most people had no clue. Like you gave that fine example. Even people who certainly should know, they have no stinking idea. Well, if you remove their thug, namely government, and people don't believe in an obligation to obey, other currencies are going to show up and compete the dollar into the dirt in about 5 seconds.
Or the dollar will prove itself to be a great currency, one or the other.
Yeah. And
either one.
Be the first, but yeah.
but that's fine. Either one is the right answer, right? Either one is the right answer. I don't care what happens. It works the way.
It's the same thing with like the false flags and the warmongering. Like if they don't have billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars to play these evil games with, because people are like, we're not obligated.
You don't understand, Larken. They hate us because we're free. Okay, God, get it right. People. Like
I threw that line into Jones Plantation Smith out there. There's just some horrible souls out there that can't stand the fact that we're free in here.
There we go. Exactly right. I got to grab a couple people here. Hold on. Peace Logic is over on Rumble. He says, keto is magic. Arthritis gone. Mental health at 1,000%. It's all good. See, guys, keto is magic. I have someone else saying it. By default, it is true. That's how that works. If two people on my show say it, it is by default true. Just so you're aware, that's how it works. That's the rules. I don't make the rules. Actually, I do make the rules. I make the rules and I enforce them. So I am both. I am judge, jury, executioner, all the things. Yes. Nate says, you agree we've been trained. I think he means I agree we're trained. It is useful. It is useful to use that training to change the system. Or does it reinforce the purpose behind that training? Oh, I see. Okay. He says, you agree that we've been trained. Is it useful to use that training to change the system, or does it reinforce the purpose behind that training, aka statism? So I guess what he's saying is, look, you've got a bunch of trained guys. It'd be like, if you wanted to stop the military-industrial complex, you'd probably want people who knew the ins and outs of the complex to stop or break that complex. I think that's what he's trying to say. Do you want people who know statism to stop statism?
Yeah, to some degree, on a practical level, that's useful. Like, I know a number of defense attorneys who are essentially voluntarists who know the stupid game and try to have people not get caged.
I literally consult with defense attorneys for exactly that. Yes.
Yeah. And I know I was actually a friend of mine who he read this while an active duty Marine, and was then an anarchist while an active duty Marine.
Yes.
And handed it out to some others before he escaped. Thankfully, he too never saw combat. He never murdered anybody for the state. But the beauty is when people inside the system wake up, that's when you start to realize, wait a minute, this big scary monster that we're scared of, it doesn't have any power of its own. Its power is all what we give it, including its enforcers. They're like our neighbors. And if our neighbors go, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Like right now, both the military and a lot of police departments aren't meeting their recruitment levels because people are like, I'm not sure I want to be a mindless thug of this state. And I remembered his name once. One of the best examples of humanity winning was at the atrocity in Mylay and the heinous things that happened there in Vietnam. And it was Hugh Thompson. I finally remembered his name for once. And he's a perfect example of, you have an order. Part of you know it's wrong, really, really wrong. You have a conscience. And he is the bravest member of the military I can think of offhand. I'm sure other things happened that I never heard of, because he landed his helicopter between the U.S. troops committing atrocities, and him and his gunner pointed guns at them and said, you're going to stop doing that to these people or we're going to kill you. And that was an act of bravery, because they said, screw the orders, screw authority. This is wrong. My conscience wins. And that is how humanity wins, when people stop obeying orders and say, at the end of the day, I have to do what I think is right.
Okay. Two things. This is the third one. Rick says, we are Larry's keto bots. True. So we know that's true. So we're looking with that. Phil brings a valid point. Phil says, how dare other countries put their countries near our Navy? He's got a valid point. He's got a valid point. Phil's got a valid point. That's them screwing up. That's their problem. They put their countries by our Navy. That's their problem. That's all I'm saying. I think he's got that one down. So we're good on that one. Larken, I'm so happy you gave me so much time. You gave me more time than I thought. Guys, if you're going to follow Larken, head over to therosechannel.com. It also shows his links for his YouTube page, his Twitter. It's all there. Follow him. Did I miss something, Larken? Wrap it up for me. What did I miss?
No, this has been a blast. And we didn't even have to scream and call each other names very much. I only called you a little bit more.
A little bit.
A little bit. I mean, compared to the rest of the world, that's pretty good.
You were good to me. You were good to me. So, excellent, guys. Don't forget, we are also on Spotify now. So if you want to find us on Spotify, please go check that out. But here's the rules on Spotify. If you go on Spotify, you must give me 5-star rating. If you don't think I'm 5 stars, I don't give a shit. Give me 5-star ratings anyway. So do it because I say so, and I'm an authoritarian. So just do so because I say so. I have the authority of government. I'm triggering Larken on purpose doing this just so he could just okay. So yes. Also, I will add one more piece if I can remember. Tomorrow's show's on civil. After that, no shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. I will be running around this weekend in New York. If you can get upstate New York and see me, come see me. You look at any of my social media. There's a poster there showing you where I'm going to be. Come see me. Come say hi. Tell me how I should have yelled at Larken, what I should have said. And I will tell you, you're probably right. I'll kiss your ass because you showed up. So I will do that because you show up. I'll do it. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Please do so. I appreciate it. And don't forget something else, guys. Remember, after this, please comment. What I want you to comment on afterwards. After this is over, come back and comment because Mr. Rhythm, Algo, that guy, he loves when you comment afterwards. So please come by and comment afterwards and say what you thought about Larken. What do you think about him? Good or bad, indifferent? I will try to respond. I'll see if I can bug him to respond too. So do that if you could. And if this is not live when you're watching it, then please do me a favor. You're going to see 1 or 2 videos pop up coming up here. Watch one of them right away. They love when you do that. Algo, Rhythm, loves when you do that. I will see you all very soon.